wonder if that door should be closed. Here we go, guys. Well, welcome to the first of what we hope to be several spotlight shows focusing on the new museum, St. Genevieve Museum Learning Center. My name is Jan Loida, and I am the Education Director of the Museum Learning Center. And with me tonight, we have two members of our board, Robert Wolk, the Chairman of the Museum Center, and Rich Rebecki, the Director of Public Relations. So it's our hope that we can dispel any rumors tonight and just kind of shed some light on this exciting project for the community. Robert, tell us how this all began.
Jan, thank you. About 4 years ago, when we were at the museum and we were struggling with paying bills, and we wondered where the next dollar was coming from because we had no taxing base, we had no income from any revenue source from the city or the county. The only money we generate at the museum is what comes through the door in the form of admissions. So the board got together and we said, how can we make this museum a live, functioning, profitable entity for St. Genevieve and be able to cash flow itself and pay its own bills? So we formed a steering committee, and the steering committee got together, and like I said, it's been about 4 years we've been working on this. And we kept vetting ideas, Jan, different things that we thought, well, this could work, this could work. And you know, you vet an idea and then you get to a point where you say, that'll never work. So we kept going through all the ideas, and eventually we got down to where we said, we need to do a capital campaign. And we didn't just jump into it, Jan. We spent a lot of time talking to a lot of people. This is our capital campaign, and the capital campaign is a vision for building the future and honoring the past.
You know, Bob, I've seen this brochure, and I know that you've talked to some of the main leaders of the community. You want to talk about that?
I will. First, let me tell you this one point, is that as we went through this, we kept saying, what's important to this committee? What's important to the museum? What's important to the community? And you see these key phrases right here. Commitment, art, community, prestige, pride, faith, discovery, education, cultural, tradition, history, inspiration, and entertainment. So those are all things that you're going to see that we tried to pack into this campaign. And yes, you're right, Jan. We didn't just jump into it. We actually went and we interviewed the mayor, and we asked the mayor for input. This started out with a committee, not the steering committee, but we actually called it a think tank. And we had people from every place in St. Genevieve, all the committees, sat in the think tank, and we talked about this. And then we formed a steering committee from that think tank. The mayor, we talked to the mayor, we talked to the county commissioner, we talked to the two educators, the top educators in St. Genevieve. And then we formed this steering committee. And from those ideas and the information we got from those people, we said, we can do a capital campaign. The first piece of it was, how do you run a capital campaign? We hired Meyer Joyce out of St. Louis, who is actually put the campaign together for us and is overseeing the campaign. And they told us, well, first thing you got to do is get a brochure together to tell the people what you're doing.
Sure.
So about the time that we're saying, okay, how are we going to make this thing run and pay for itself, we were introduced to a gentleman by the name of Guy Darrell and his wife Doris. And Vern Bowman, who is on our steering committee, actually is the one that brought him to us. And he said, you know, Guy Darrell is an artist, and he has a museum currently, and he has a lot of interest in bringing something to St. Genevieve. And I'm going to let Rich talk about that, because at this point, I think Rich has more information than I will give you on this subject.
Sure.
As Robert said, first and foremost, Guy is an artist, and what he does is he creates full-size, full-scale dinosaurs. And he's been featured on Nat Geo. His dinosaurs have been featured on Nat Geo, on the Discovery Channel. By trade, he takes these creations, much like a rock concert, loads up tractor trailers and brings them to botanical gardens, brings them western part of the country, southeast part of the country. Just recently, he helped open a garden in the greater Kansas City area. And for about 3 months at a pop, his dinosaurs are on display, embedded in the foliage of the property. And he tells us that dinosaurs are an attraction. It's not the end all.
Right.
And through all of our communiques with the public, we try to emphasize we're not converting the History Museum into a dinosaur exhibit. The guy happens to make dinosaurs for a living. As a young child, though, he started collecting. And he's become a world-renowned collector of artifacts, of fossils. You name it, he probably owns it. He and his wife share the same fear that most collecting couples that have no heirs fear, and that's after we're gone, what happens to our $3 to $5 million collection of stuff. And
A legacy, if you will, Jan.
Sure.
Yeah, and everything happens for a reason. I mean, we're looking to better our little tiny history museum, and here comes this gentleman and his wife through the door saying, well, I've got $3 to $5 million worth of fossils and artifacts I'd like to leave, but the environment has to be.
Right. So I understand that in his travels, he's met other collectors, and they have actually handed some of their collections over to Guy as well. So can you tell us about the different civilizations that will be represented in?
Well, you name a pre-Columbian civilization, we'll have on display. We'll have artifacts from Incas, Aztecs. We'll have Native American artifacts. Matter of fact, we have some jewelry. I think it's in our brochure. It's beads, but they're so old they're strung with human hair.
Wow.
Not wire, not metal.
So those are these right here, Jan.
Okay, sure.
And what everything that we're going to have on display comes with a history. It's linked to something. And I mean, just by looking, you can learn a little. By reading a card or a sign, you could learn a little more. But empirical studies, indicate unless you get involved and you become hands-on, that's the only way to maximize learning. And that's what Guy wants. Guy wants a fully interactive educational museum learning center. He wants to instill in young minds the same drive and desire that he had at a younger age. And we're going to have some stuff on display that no one else in the entire world has.
So Guy will actually let you touch some of these artifacts.
We're hoping that not only can kids touch, they can sniff, taste, whatever, but it's going to be fully interactive.
I understand that there's going to be an area where the kids can actually even dig for their own fossils.
We're hoping that in what is now the basement of the building, that we have a pit. And in that pit, kids aren't just going to go and pay a fee to jump in sand. They're going to learn proper techniques of archaeology. How you make your 12-inch squares, what you do once that 12-inch square is laid out, how you move, whether it's right to left, top to bottom, within that square, how to do the next square. And they will come up with something. Because
Jan, when we say kids, you got to understand, this isn't just for grade school or high school. He's talking college level. Is that right, Rick?
Oh, yeah. That's the secret behind the title. We're not a history and science museum. We're a museum learning center. Our focus is going to be strictly on education. And what better way to learn but to have somebody that's so highly thought of in his circles. This gentleman has his own display drawers in the Smithsonian.
So will Guy be there in the Museum Learning Center throughout the day to just visit with and to help?
Well, his schedule right now isn't etched in stone, but he will be our curator.
Great, okay.
And he will take the curator's position.
Right.
Okay.
And, here's what Guy has asked of us, and Guy and his wife Doris. Doris is as much involved in this as anybody, and Rich, you might want to bring us up a little bit on Doris then.
Doris, Guy gets down and dirty, but Doris is the one that calls the shots. And then when you think of it, what marriage isn't like that?
But she keeps track of the records and does the research work.
Meticulous individual when it comes to proofing a document, researching an article. I mean, when she's present, we'll eventually later in the show get into the education components in the building, but there's no computer, printer, a fax or copy machine, there's no periodical, there's no book that has the wealth of information that Doris has. And if she's physically present, win a chicken dinner. I mean, you can ask her anything, and if she doesn't know the answer, she'll get you the answer in short time.
So what Guy and Doris have asked of us, Jan, is we will become the curators. We were looking for a place to leave our legacy. And Rich didn't even talk about this. You want to hit on this just for a little bit, Rich?
The Missouri Dinosaur?
Yes.
Yeah, at this point in time, Guy is overseeing the Missouri Dinosaur dig. And the state of Missouri has a dinosaur. And it's just not, we've got a state flower, we've got a state bird, maybe we should have a state dinosaur. No, the dinosaur, bits and pieces of that animal have been dug up in this state. And Guy lobbied for the powers to be to recognize the fact that the state has a dinosaur. And he fleshed one out. This guy is so talented, he can take a series of bones and project what the animal will look like when it roamed the earth. And on the back cover of our capital campaign brochure is the Missouri dinosaur with some of its I don't know what you call dinosaur babies or
baby dinosaurs.
Baby dinosaurs, sure.
Yeah, that works perfectly.
Yeah.
So he actually, in putting the skeleton back together and then superimposing skin and doing his artwork over that, he's helping us to understand how they really did look and roam the Missouri.
And this is just one of maybe a couple of dozen dinosaurs that he's already made. And if everything works the way we hope it will, as you walk into the Grand Hall, you'll be greeted by, what is it, about a 30-foot wingspan pterodactyl that it's so big in his warehouse shop. He keeps, I think, just the body suspended. He can't put the wings on it. They're suspended but not connected. But it will be fully connected in our Museum Learning Center. And he also, you had asked a question about will he be there every day. He may not be there every day, but he's planning on using part of the great exhibition hall to build a dinosaur. And people walking by the street will be able to see the construction to a certain point. And then when their curiosity is at a peak, then the curtains will be drawn and they'll have to come into the museum to see what it looks like.
Well, I would think that most people would be interested in seeing a dinosaur in the window. However, it's not just about the dinosaurs, right? I mean, what's exciting about this is we're going to take our St. Genevieve Museum, which is very limited in its space, and in a very old building.
Not in collection.
Not in collection. In space to show what they have.
Yes.
And they're going to open that up and expand on that, plus give us an opportunity to show history in what actually built St. Genevieve, the mining and the agriculture and the development in this community, the families
Right. And
that
Jan,
have.
the thing that, I think what we want to get across is Guy and Doris aren't coming to us asking us for money. What Guy and Doris has come to us and said, we want to look for a place to leave our legacy. Your town is 4 miles off the interstate. It's probably within a 150-mile radius of 3 million people, market area. What we're asking you to do is do two things. Number one, give us a quality building where we can display our very quality professional artifacts. So they've asked us to restore a building to the extent that the DuBourg Center has been restored. That's number one. Number two, they asked us to have a board that understands how to run a business so that we can operate that museum in a profitable manner. We're not going to be out begging people for money. It's going to be a true functioning entity of St. Genevieve, and probably a lot more as we move along, because we've got artifacts that can actually help businesses in St. Genevieve increase their people count.
Sure.
By putting a display in there, something that's relevant to their business, displaying those artifacts there. So that's all that Guy and Doris are asking us. They're not asking us to buy their artifacts. That's not what they're asking us. They're telling us, if you give us that, we'll bring our stuff in. We'll staff your museum with our artifacts and bring your stuff from your museum and properly place it all in the chronological order that it took place. So all of our artifacts will go in there and be put in the right order as time shows it to have taken place. In exchange for that, they will help us run the museum by being curators, and they will then look to leave their legacy to the museum that's taking care of it and preserving that legacy. And what he says is, I'd like to get off the road doing these shows that I do currently and have a place where I can educate young minds. Because as Rich said, unless you can touch it and feel it, you can't get it. You can't get it off your cell phone. You can't get it off the internet, Dan.
Right, so you talked earlier about a self-sustaining museum that is financially sound and has a way of bringing in revenue consistently. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, let me just say that it's not just about the museum. When we're developing this, and part of that vetting process as we met first with that think tank and the steering committee, was what do we design and develop that just doesn't help the museum, it helps the entire community.
Right.
So what we did was we went in and we looked at a building, and that building is the Ketting building here in St. Genevieve. And we talked to the Ketting family, who has been very instrumental in that museum being here. Both the Kettings have been curators of their own on this museum. They're part of the reason that it's existed for 80 years, and God bless them, I don't know, they had to go out and beg for money every year.
Wow.
So it's there. We looked at buying that building, so we signed a contract with them to purchase this building. And then we're going to restore it to the quality that the DuBourg Center has been restored to. And then we're going to bring into, and with Guy's direction, remember that Guy and Doris have spent an entire lifetime doing nothing but being around museums, so they know what works and what don't work.
Right.
And we don't want to do what doesn't work.
Sure.
We just want to do the stuff that works. So part of that is putting in a true museum gift shop that's relevant to the building, relevant to what we're teaching, and have a place where people can pick up items and articles and posters and things that's relevant to the museum. So that's number one. You'll enter through the gift shop, and you'll exit it through the gift shop. And then on the first floor is going to be as Rich said, you want to go back across that, Rich, a little bit about the first floor?
Yeah, there'll be, the main floor will be the first floor. We haven't come up with the terminology yet, whether it's going to be the Great Hall, the Grand Hall. We'll probably, research some of the bigger museums, what they call theirs, and, we'd like to be unique, but I don't see us calling it the very big hall, but.
Like the big river, the big field.
Yeah.
We got a lot of bigs around
We got a lot of
here,
bigs around here. But there'll be an historical timeline, and like Robert said, this is a true union of two museums. One is not playing second fiddle to the other. And we tried to go back a step. We tried to retain the original building. I mean, we came up with ideas and we came up with plans. Nothing was going to keep us there. It would be another 80 years of begging for money and closets that have artifacts in that nobody sees. That's when we came to the idea that, well, let's look at two buildings.
Right.
You know, and then we decided, well, let's shoot holes in that philosophy. What is the new building going to be the main building? Is our historical museum going to be the annex? You know, they're kind of, where you stand, not in eyesight of one another. And you go to the other end of the historical building and you can see the Kenning building. That's going to confuse visitors. So reluctantly, we ended up saying, no, if we're going to do this, we've got to find a facility that's big enough to meet needs. Okay, and I got to give this guy props because he put a committee together that knows the difference between wanting something and needing something. And everything that our focus is on what it is we need. Now, obviously, if we exceed our capital campaign and we go beyond the basics, well, then we've satisfied our needs. Then we can get into, I want this, I want that, I want this, but we're not at that point just yet. So that first floor will be the main exhibit area, if you will, with a part of it in front of the windows where Guy, Doris, Guy's artist that puts the final touching on the animal, they do their thing. Not every day, not every hour, but there'll be a work space on the first floor. There'll be handicap accessible bathrooms, obviously, on the first floor. There'll be the gift shop on the first floor. Maybe a very small concession area, not one that would, we don't want to knock heads with the merchants in town that sell food and drink, but you do have to have something other than bubblers, you know, water bubblers. Do they say bubbler out here, or is it water fountain?
What's the matter?
Okay.
We're gonna have to educate bubblers.
Okay.
Those upside down water tanks, is that what you're talking about?
Okay, but in any case, that will be the first floor. And then what gets me all jacked up and excited about is what we're planning on the second floor. So we've already mentioned the possibility of an architectural dig site in the form of a pit.
In the basement.
In the basement.
Okay.
Now we've got this beautiful, huge main exhibit space. The dinosaurs, they're so big, that's where you'll see them. So, and you know, let's face it, I mean, there were rumors out there that we were building, we were going strictly dinosaur and dinosaur only. And what are you going to see after you get through the gift store? You're going to see dinosaurs. But the space is big, the dinosaurs are big. That's where they'll be.
Right, sure.
Okay, but after that, it's a timeline of history and science. Finishing out that first floor.
So take us up into the second floor.
Okay, well, if my vision, if what I'm seeing in this project, as you're walking through the main exhibit, you'll pass some living fossils. This county has amphibians, it has snakes, it has fish. Why not have some aquariums with that stuff in? So we will have living fossils as well as fossil fossils.
And Jan, just to build on that for a second, Guy has actually made contact with a person who designs aquariums for special use, and they are working together to have an aquarium built for this building, specifically for this building, and make it into where a dinosaur's drinking out of the top of it. It will show dinosaurs on the top, and it'll be open on the side, so when you're looking in there, you actually see fish that are common to this area and different things that he will put in there.
Yeah.
So he's already talking to somebody about that. Again, the difference between need and want,
Sure.
depending on how much capital we raise. So then we've promised people rooms on this second floor.
Yeah, the second floor, education, learning, it's going to happen all over the place, but it'll be more focused on that second floor. We're dedicating rooms to some of the culture that happens here in St. Genevieve. We'll have the St. Genevieve room.
Okay,
And
just to show the history of
just-
the French colonial history of St.
Not
Genevieve.
just St.
Preserving
Genevieve, yeah.
that.
And-
Right, exactly, which is what you see a lot over in the museum.
Yeah,
Right,
and,
right.
and we will have artwork generated from some of the kids in town on display. We'll have items that people will say, oh, I remember that, Santa Claus.
The Darlou
The
set.
Darlou
Oh, I
Santa
saw
Claus will,
right.
will have a prominent spot. But again, we're a museum learning center.
Right.
So what better place to showcase families that have deep historical roots in St. Genevieve, but offer them the space to put on their own family
Gathering?
exhibit.
Oh, okay,
So like the Lloyd family.
sure.
The history of the Lloyd family and agriculture, the valleys, the Ewings, all of these families, they would get that spot for 2 or 3 months. They would set it up, bring the history of their family in, and have pictures and tell their story. Again, what we're trying to do, Jan, in this process is we don't want that museum to be a place that people go to and visit one time and not come back for 4 or 5 years. We actually intend to have people in there 4 or 5 times a year or more.
So you'll be rotating exhibits, you'll be giving
We'll have the
families
space to-
coming in to tell their story and to show
Yeah.
just specifically what's been a part of their history.
Oh, yeah.
And that will draw others to come and hear their stories. That's exciting.
So let's take it from let's talk about people who work at Mississippi Lime.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, Mississippi Lime is our major benefactor here. They have been key to this whole entire project. Fantastic to work with, fantastic to sit down and give us ideas of how to generate revenue for this. They've been great. But we've got a mining room. And in the mining room, we're going to tell the history of Mississippi Lime Company. What a fantastic story to tell. And a story to tell that there's 2 towns in St. Genevieve. You got the top town, and there's a town underneath of us. That town runs 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. They got 4-lane highways down there. They got stoplights down there. They got cafeterias. They got mechanic shops. They got everything under there. It's amazing. Tell that story. And we want to talk about Tar Rock Stone. A couple of football fields away from the Mississippi River, and they're 250 feet below the level of the Mississippi River. That's an unbelievable story that you can
Right.
mine rock, be 250 feet below a major river, and down in that hole, mining rock. Lawas, we want to tell their story. Holston, tell their story. Bowman Brothers, the Bowman family, who's been mining gravel and rock and providing material for this county for years and years. What a great family. So we'll have those family stories, and the mining room will tell stories. And what we're thinking about is, I've worked for 42 years in my business, talking to people who work at Mississippi Lime. They're immensely proud of what they've done to make a living. And you get them talking about it, they can just tell you everything that's going on, but they got no place to take their relatives who come to town, in-laws, friends, and say, this is how I make a living.
Have you been down in the mines?
Yes, I
It's
have.
an amazing tour,
It
if
is.
you can find your way in and
I kind of let somebody take me.
right, right. Well, you're right, I would not want to go in by myself. I would definitely want someone who's been working down there for years.
It's an amazing
It
place,
is.
isn't it?
It's
So we
amazing.
think that Mississippi Lime will bring in, and Lawas will bring in, and Holston will bring in complete video cameras of what they do and how they do it, and it'll be narrated. And people can come in, and in our, what do you call
Our
it?
resource center?
Our resource center, or
Yeah.
our room, our
Isn't there a theater room? Your AV room or your theater?
Yeah, besides the St. Genevieve room, the mining room, we're planning an agriculture room. I mean, even I know, I've only been in town 5 years, but even I know that when I first got my undergraduate degree, there were more cows than people in this town, and that was back in 71, 72. Now there are vineyards.
Exactly.
So there's a story behind how to grow crops. There's a story behind, and families that do that, have been doing that for, decades upon decades. In addition to the agriculture, we're planning on manufacturing. We've got businesses that manufacture in this town. So every room is going to tell a story. The biggest room, I'm calling it a full-blown resource center. It's not a library. It's not an audio-visual room. It's all-inclusive. We will not just have books and periodicals for people to do research. We will have computers. We will have printers. We will have scanners. We'll be completely state-of-the-art. So if you saw something in a display and you took down the code area, you'd be able to go upstairs and either on your own or with the help of a worker, dig deeper and research what sparked your interest.
So this is going to lead into internet research and unlimited knowledge.
I'm not having much luck. I'm afraid my contact in Salt Lake City is walking with angels, but when I met her, she oversaw the genealogy mainframes at Temple Square in Salt Lake City. The genealogy department in Salt Lake City, when I met her, was the largest in the world. And I was hoping to work a connection so we could tie in. So part of research that could be done not at the expense of mom and dad, that live in Valley Springs. You can come and do your research in our research center. Well, we've got some kinks to iron out, but genealogy is very important. I don't have to tell you how important the French and German culture is around here. You mentioned a theater. Yeah, we're planning an amphitheater, one that is small enough where we could have guest lecturers. We would like to be able to have colleges and junior colleges award and teachers PDP credits if we have world-class lectures going on. Guy Darrow is connected to people that are the top of their profession. If a science teacher at either of the two schools is doing a genealogy lesson and could use a hand, we could get Guy to get us a geologist, and he could come in and give a lecture. Adult evening classes, that's something that we're planning on, daytime classes. The amphitheater will also be large enough to bring families back at night to watch a museum or a history-related movie like the Jurassic Park series, the Indiana Jones series. Everything is educational, even though they were made in Hollywood and on location. But we're leaving no stone unturned, and not to beat up on the fact that we have a goal. That $1.15 million gives us what we need. And what we need, we're not a greedy committee, what we need are the bare minimums. And we're patient enough that if we have to wait, in time we'll get that what we want category. We're setting our sights on doing both.
You want to talk about how well we're doing toward that goal?
We're just south of 50%.
Okay.
And I say that because at 50%, two very important dominoes fall. the bank that's working with us knows that we're committed, and they can see the figures, and lo and behold, the loan is issued.
Okay.
The other part is the writing of grants. There are philanthropists out there that are careful with their money, and they just don't respond to a cover letter. And in a grant, all grants are basically the same to a certain point. Then it's at that point that you have to be at 50%, because they want to see
A
that you've
commitment.
made that commitment and that progress.
And that you have the support of the community around you, of course.
Yeah, and so far, I mean, once we decided, once, you know, the feasibility study indicated, even though this was the third capital campaign attempt in almost as many years for this community, the numbers were high enough in the feasibility study to indicate it's a doable thing. And we're hoping that we can do the doable part before we start writing the grants. Because if we're at that figure before the grants, then when the grants kick in, that puts us up and over.
Can you explain the 501c3 entity in your donation?
Yeah, it's because because we have that 501c3 designation, where anything that comes, most donations that come in are tax deductible.
Right.
There's a few that aren't, but they're not anything that we, to worry about. So a person can get a sizable tax deduction. A $10,000 commitment to the program may only be about $7,500 if that person needs to write off, $2,500 in the course of a year. But because we have that designation, or I should say, in addition to having that designation, that 501c3 allows us to scholarship. And in our case, we're an education center. In the real world, the first thing that's cut out of budgets for schools, transportation. The second thing that's cut out of schools for budgetary, concerns, are field trips. Right? So, how can we expect schools in St. Louis, in Illinois, down in Cape Girardeau, maybe as far away as Kansas City? How do we expect them to come if there's no money? Well, once we become self-sufficient, once Uncle Sam starts to audit us, Uncle Sam's going to look at how much money is coming in one door and how much is going out in the way of scholarshiping in the other door. So we already have, because I've got some 501c3 experience from back in Massachusetts, we already have a vehicle in place where there's a certain procedure where a school can say, we'd really like to come, we can't afford to come, is there something you can do to help us out to get there?
So that's what you're talking about with the scholarshiping, that we're going to be helping these schools and these students from all over the area come to visit the museum.
Yeah, they're not going to be able to walk across the street or walk down the street to get to us. They're going to have to travel. And we'll be able to financially help them out. And the other thing that is nice about the 501c3 designation is you can only roll over a certain percent of money, kind of like seed money for the next fiscal year. So there could be a pool of money sitting there that you can't take. The employees can't take, the committee can't take. So what you do with that little pool of money is you gift it to a graduating senior, or seniors, or the homeschool kids that have met the state requirements for graduation. There's a vehicle in place for that. How to apply for that college check, that military check, that advanced education check. So that's all part of the designation.
So Jan, and to build on that, And once we reached that point, we went out and we talked to a lot of people in the community, and that's the page I'm holding up right now. So we went to people that, Vern Bowman, remember I said Vern was the one that introduced us to Guy. Very instrumental in this whole project. He's on our steering committee, by the way. Hank Johnson. Hank owns a winery, is a very good businessman in several venues in St. Genevieve, has been very helpful. Tom King, the CEO of the hospital, plus he's on the IDC board, he's on the chamber board. Martha Riesinger, the president of the school board for St. Gen. Ron Klein with Citizens Electric Corporation, longtime educator, Linda Lurk. We've got our Sandra Cabot, who is our tourist director here in St. Genevieve. Chris and Linda Kurtz, who have collections of their own in the World War II venue. Charles and Richard Hurst. So these people all got to see exactly what Rich and I see by either visiting the current museum that Guy Darrow has down in Marble Hill, or by visiting his studios. And all of them give a testimonial. So what we're going to ask is that people, we can't read everybody these testimonials, but we think it's important that they go to our website and actually read the testimonies, see what the people that have actually looked at what's coming to St. Genevieve and what they say about it.
So we have an up and running website for the
Yes,
St. Genevieve
we do.
Learning Museum Center.
And that
Can you-
website is?
It's lowercase, all lowercase letters. In your browser bar, you type SG, the St. Genevieve,
Sure.
MLC, the
Okay.
Museum Learning Center, .org.
That's pretty
It's an
simple.
It's organization.
That'll take you to our website, and this brochure is on that website, by the way.
So anybody can see it. That's wonderful.
Exactly. So they can read all the testimonials. They can see things that are going to be in there. Rich hasn't even mentioned this little thing yet. He usually gets so excited.
Well,
about it.
no, in our closing remarks, I'm going to touch on that.
So Jan, let's take you, because you asked this question a while ago, let's go into how we develop numbers and where
Right.
we got the numbers from and how come we need 1.15. And again, as Rich so well stated, we know the need is 1.15.
Our want is greater, but our
Yeah.
need is that to get it up and
So what we did
running.
was we took the square footage of that building, and it's the square footage, and we know what we stuck in the Rozier building when we restored that
Sure.
building. We took it, that cost per square foot, went over, took it, multiplied it into this square footage. We looked at what it's going to cost to stock that museum with the displays, because the displays moving it is not cheap. We have to set them up, we have to get the electricity, we have to set all the newest and most modern items available to museums in there to bring the crowds in. We want to stock our gifts, our shop.
Gift shop?
Gift
Your
shop,
gift
there you
shop,
go.
sure.
We want to stock that. And then we want to have 1 year's operating salaries for our first employees. I think one of the big things that we want to say is volunteers are great and we need them, but you can't run a business on volunteers. So we will actually have the curator, we will have a full-time sales staff that's busy every day contacting schools within a 150-mile radius, asking them, here's what we've got, here's what we offer. How can we get your school to come to our venue? We will have those people marketing to the vacation spots in St. Louis saying, run a bus down here. 2 or 3 times a week, why not bring a bus to St. Genevieve to go through what we have to offer? And visit old homes and eat at some of our historic restaurants. So our cost is $1.15 million for the need. From there, we're going to talk about what it does. So now we're going to project out. And we've tried to downplay these numbers because understand that what Guy Darrow does when he sets these displays up, he brings 30,000 people a month, additional people into these displays.
Wow.
So he brings in 30,000. We're saying if we just bring 25,000 more people to St. Genevieve in the course of a year, and his projections, Rich, are?
They're amazing. Matter of fact, his projections, they're too scary to put down in print, because they're almost unbelievable.
But he does it for a living, he's done it all his life.
And he's done it all his life, and we did our own independent research that verifies that.
That he draws that big of a crowd to his displays.
Oh, yeah.
If you were going to compare the caliber of this museum to something that people know about in the area, like the St. Louis Science Center, as far as the quality of it, how do you compare that? Is it going to be that big or that grandeur, or is it?
It's going to be that grandioso. It's
Okay.
going to be, there's stuff that I actually saw in Guy's house, and his quote was, "The people up in St. Louis would love to have just one of these." And he had a whole drawer.
So you see this item here?
Sure, yeah.
And Rich and I always talk about this item. This item, the guy tells us took 7 years to chip out of the stone. That's how long they've got invested in this stuff. You've got your,
Yeah, we got a Jurassic Park display.
so these are all things, he's got drawers of this. So that's what we're asking people. We are trying to raise the $1.15 million. We're well over 40%, we're just below 50% of that, and as Rich said, there's things that happen at the 50% mark. So
So if we go into this website, there is a place that people can donate through the website, or they can ask further questions
they
about?
can do both.
Okay, good.
We have a center where they can address questions and somebody will answer. They can chat on there. They can view everything that we're projecting is going to happen, and then there is a gifting site where they can go on and make donations to the museum. And Jan, we're going to need everybody. We need everybody to be involved. We want everybody to be involved.
Well, I know, as a part of the steering committee, we've been going out and just meeting people one-on-one, and it takes a lot of time and energy to do that. We
that's
want
been-
more to help us do that.
That's been part of our problem,
Right,
as you know,
exactly.
Jan.
I know.
There's been about 15 of us trying to do this, and we've got it to
Mm-hmm.
a $500,000.
Right.
So we need to get past that. We've got the ball rolling. It'll continue to roll now with the help of the people in St. Genevieve, and we want everybody involved and to be active in it.
That's very exciting.
So it will not only help the museum, but the question you asked a while ago, well, how's everybody else going to benefit by this?
Oh, my.
If you bring 25,000 additional people in, and down at the bottom of the page, we'll say that'll bring $536,250 additional money to the county. So yes, we'll be self-sufficient, yes, we'll grow that museum, and anybody that we touch in the process will benefit from it, because 25,000 additional people, all of that in the circle of things will help everybody in town.
We've been meeting different organizations, different groups. We've met with all of the wineries. And the message we hope we left with them was, your chief competition, winery A, is not winery B down the road. You know, your chief competition, food service, your chief competition isn't around the corner. Your chief competition is up in the greater St. Louis area. And with this venue becomes a player along with the older homes.
Right.
They then become a player with the wineries. I'm uncomfortable using the word tourist because I know in some circles it has a negative connotation.
And you're not pronouncing it right anyway.
Why?
It's tourist, for Christ's sakes.
Oh, well, whatever. Remember, the Pilgrims landed in my backyard, not yours.
Point well made.
Okay, but, now I lost my train of thought.
Well, we were talking
The
about
competition.
the competition.
We want people to
Right.
come down here, and the way I see it, we want more visitors. Because I don't care if you travel 1,500 miles to get here or 1,500 feet. You're going to be visiting a world-class facility. And, you know, to the naysayers that are still out there, this is going to happen. And this is going to be truly a diamond, for this community. We don't have a crystal ball, so we can't sit down in front of a merchant and say what percent increase they can count on, but we're confident enough, based on our own research, based on what Guy does with his traveling shows, that there will be significant upticks in the hotel industry, in the food service industry. I guess the wineries would fall under food service.
Well, sure.
The restaurant, yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
I mean,
And Rich, as I have been out talking to people interested in museums, I didn't realize how many other museums are trying to develop in the area, in Perry County and Cape County. So up and down Interstate 55, we have some museum activity, which will bring that
even more.
the visitors this direction again, in the same way that we're hoping our wineries bring them away from
But
some of the other larger.
Unlike the
Yeah.
other things that are being done, we're going to be all-encompassing. We're not focusing just on history,
Right.
historical related. We're not focusing just on science and.
Thus the Learning
Yeah.
Center.
Yeah,
Right.
And
I think,
And the final thing that I'd like to say about that is, we don't have that crystal ball, as Rich said, but we did a sampling this past weekend on the Christmas walk. We brought a dinosaur, one of Guy's 30-foot dinosaurs in here. We set it up in the Duberg Center and said, come in and get your photo taken. We're not charging you anything for it, it's free. And we had several other dinosaurs set up on a display. We were due to open that display at 10 o'clock, and we were going to be open to 10 to 4. People were lining up at 8:30.
to have
So
their
we
picture
opened-
taken,
Yeah,
really?
we opened it at 8:30.
Oh,
And
my.
from 8:30 to 4 o'clock. At 4 o'clock, when we took that display down and was loading it up, there were still people, families, in town, coming out and getting their pictures taken while we were loading it on the trailer.
That's pretty exciting.
So, and we logged in 157 family units, over 500 kids came through, and we think we maybe caught 2/3 of them, maybe not. It was so crowded and so congested with people lined up to get their picture taken with that dinosaur. And we let them go in, as Rich said. The guy wants them to touch it, to
Sure.
feel it. They went up, stood, and put their arms on this dinosaur and got the picture taken. So, yes, we think that we're not going to be a dinosaur museum, but dinosaurs are definitely a drawing card, and we will have them at our disposal due to Guy.
That's really exciting, and I understand that you took the dinosaurs out to the St. Genevieve Community Center for this
Yes.
upcoming event, the Santa Claus.
Right, so they have
Christmas
their Christmas party
party,
this
right.
weekend. And in conjunction with that, this weekend, they will sell tickets to win a dinosaur model. And it's valued at $300. And people will have the ability to buy a $10 ticket. And that event's going to go from 10 to 2, and at 2 o'clock, we will draw the winner of that and actually present them the model right there.
That's pretty exciting. What time is it, fellas? We have been talking, we could probably talk a lot longer.
yeah,
Huh?
we've got a few minutes just to close it, close up, closing remarks and say goodnight. We've got just a couple of minutes left on the.
Is there anything else you want to say, Robert
Well,
or
I
Rich?
think the one thing that I want to say is it's been an exciting venture. It's been a lot of work, but it's going to be very exciting. I think that we're on the tip of this exciting adventure. I think that everybody, the merchants and every business in town will benefit from what we're doing, and we're excited to bring it forward.
I can't tell you how excited I am to have just an opportunity for students to learn of all ages. And I hope I have never outgrown the student interest. I mean, I think that you're a student until the day you die, and there's.
Hang around Guy
Right.
and Doris. you will
Right,
be very
right. And
excited.
I have been around Guy and Doris, and the excitement and the charisma that they exude whenever they talk about this is amazing. I mean, they are as if it was the first time they've talked about it. It's very exciting to them. So, what about you, Rich?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I've been here for 5 years, and when Robert first brought me in his office to run this concept up my flagpole, I was a little reluctant because I could probably fill out an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper with all the businesses that opened and closed in the 5 short years I've been here. I gave him a listen. little by little, I got involved. You want to hold up that picture in the back there, that mosquito? All right, Jurassic Park 1. John Hammond, the Scottish scientist, extracted blood from a mosquito that bit a dinosaur. Everybody else knows the story after that. Well, we have more than one prehistoric animal that's going to be on display. Some of them you're going to be able to pick up and hold up to the light, turn it over. And when I saw that, then okay, this is
unique.
This is unique.
This is unique. This is not going to be seen
unique.
anywhere else.
And we can be followed. We can be followed on Facebook. We have a Facebook account.
Okay.
We already mentioned the website. We have a Twitter account. So in addition to all this, is that the word? Antiquity? What's the word? Antiquity. And
It would be a different word in Missouri than it is
in Massachusetts. Okay. The antiquity. In addition to that, we have come 21st century with getting our information out. The newspaper's been extremely, both the electronic version, the Sun-Times, the Herald, KTJJ in Farmington. Chad Speaker sees the value of this because we were looking at St. Genevieve and St. Genevieve County, and Chad Speaker, when we had our radio interview, said, well, we're going to see an uptick. You folks don't have that many food services in town. They're going to have to come west.
Right, exactly.
You know, so communities in and around St. Genevieve will benefit from this. And I do see a day where, you know, buses come in. I see a day when boats dock and
Trains.
you know, trains and boats and trains and planes.
We sure have a way to get here. I mean, we can
Yeah.
fly them in, we can rail them in, and we can bring them down the
Hell,
river.
let's get an airport.
Absolutely.
We can fly people in.
That's true. Well, we
Dan, what
probably,
about you? Do you have a closing remark for our folks?
I am just excited to be a part of this project. I love to learn. I have always pushed myself to do something new and challenge myself. And so this has been more of a challenge than I ever expected, I'll be honest. But it's exciting to be a part of it. And I get real excited talking to people in this community about it and outside the community. And, you know, right now we're asking for your support.
That's it.
And we're asking for your donation or your interest.
And becoming involved.
And becoming involved, absolutely. So we hope to see you in January. And until then, happy holidays.
Jan, thank you.
And thank you for
Jan.
joining us tonight. Okay.
Appreciate it.
All righty.
Perfect.
Bye-bye.